Hello, my name is Trevor Mckinnon. I'm the founder and CEO of Hitchpin. I'd like to welcome you guys to the Alpha Ag Network Summit, February 25th and 26th. I always look at these summits and think, what are the most important reasons to attend and to watch these things? Well, first of all, there's so much happening in agriculture right now. We have changes in technology, we have changes in policy, in trade. All these things are going to be covered in the Alpha Ag Network Summit, including panels with farmers and discussions about weather. From a Hitchpin perspective, we are excited about this, particularly on the front of technology. We think technology is going to change the game as we are able to link farmers as buyers and sellers to be able to hire services and sell things like equipment and cattle and hay. So anyway, join us February 25th and 26th for the Alpha Ag Network Summit. And thank you for joining.
And we'd like to welcome everyone to the Alpha Ag Summit. And we want to thank you all for attending on whatever platform that you are streaming this program on. Our panel discussion will be on technology, and it is brought to you by our presenting sponsor of the Alpha Ag Summit, Hitchpin. You can go to www.hitchpin.com to get more information. Well, the future is exciting in agriculture. We know about all the new technology and equipment, but what about online? What about digital? We'll hear more about that technology and how it can help you increase revenue while decreasing cost for their operations. So let's introduce who we'll have on the panel. And you just heard from him, as a matter of fact, Trevor Mckinnon, who is the CEO and founder of Hitchpin. He is responsible for leading an exceptional team with deep technical and agricultural expertise. Trevor founded Hitchpin after over 25 years of experience in the agriculture and technology industries. He saw the need to help with the equipment, labor, and economic conditions on his family farm and other farms across the country. Hitchpin is the third technology company that Trevor has founded. Prior to startups, Trevor's work included communications of intellectual property, also led legislative strategy for then Congressman, now Senator Jerry Moran of Kansas, in the policy areas of technology and strategy, and consultant at Anderson Consulting and Accenture. Trevor is a graduate of Kansas State University and also the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, known of course as MIT, where he was a Sloan Fellow. His career has been at the intersection of developing new technologies and commercializing them. He's also an active member of a bank board for over 23 years, and he was raised on farming near Abilene, Kansas, and they have returned to Kansas from Washington, D.C. with their 4 children. This reminder as well, before we begin, that remind everyone that the views and opinions that are expressed on this summit are not those of Alpha Media and do not represent the viewpoints of the Alpha Ag Network stations, their farm directors, or management. This broadcast is protected by copyright law, and credit should be given whenever sharing or reposting of this video. And we're pleased to be joined by the founder and CEO of Hitchpin, who is the presenting sponsor of the Alpha Ag Summit, Trevor Mckinnon, who joins us. Trevor, how you doing?
I'm great. Hey, thank you, Greg. I've been watching the Ag Summit, and you've had some fantastic panels, and I've really enjoyed the discussion.
We're going to talk about technology today, and a question popped up in my head first off, and we're going to kind of go back in time. Do you remember on your family farm the first implement that your dad let you on? Was it a tractor?
Oh, pop quiz here. I like this. Yeah. No, it started pretty early. I will tell you. In fact, I have 4 kids right now, and I look at their ages, and I'm thinking, what was I doing back then? Well, we started pretty early. I remember driving the pickup, in the field long before driver's license were ever a thing, and then certainly tractors and combines. I mean, the kind of great irony, which I wasn't expecting to talk about on this, is I remember driving tractors and the hitch pin, which is what connects the tractor. Of course, all the ag guys out there know that it connects the tractor to the implement. I remember some of those hitch pins were pretty big, and at the time, I remember having a hard time pulling the pin out of the bottom. That's how thick the hitch pins were, and kind of how young I was. But it was a wonderful way to grow up, working, side by side with your parents and your siblings. And, it's a real, that part of agriculture is something that's pretty magical, and something that, hopefully can continue on for many generations yet to go.
And I asked that question. The reason why I ask is, I can remember the first time I was on the tractor with my dad. It was an open air tractor, open cab tractor. But as you went through the years, of course, technology got better. The tractors got better. The pickups got better. The implements got better.
Yeah.
So let me ask you this. You have been really looking at that as far as technology, entrepreneurial spirit. What was that first spark that said, hey, I really like this, and this is something I want to pursue?
Well, I mean, that started, again, incredibly early. I guess if I were thinking back to one of the first sort of entrepreneurial sparks, it was at a county fair, and there was a guy making miniature hay bales. I was probably 6 years old or 5 years old or something like that. He's making many hay bales. And I remember looking at that thinking, that's pretty cool. And then I thought, well, why have the bale when you could have the baler? And build them yourself and sell them to your fellow students. So I guess, that I had to talk the venture capitalist, my parents, into loaning the money for the baler, this little miniature hand baler. So it started earlier. But I would say with Hitchpin, this is certainly a company that comes out of the age old sort of entrepreneurial thing of, I really need this. I've looked out there to see if it exists. It doesn't. I guess we'll have to build it. And that's really where Hitchpin kind of comes from, is the need for our farm for these sorts of things. And it just didn't exist. And so we decided to build it.
In so many ways, it's probably, you go, what are the issues that my dad went through, my family went through, that were struggles, I guess maybe is the better way to put it. And how can I make that better? How can I make that easier for them?
Yeah, I'm a product of 1980s farming. So that's when we were really kind of growing our operation. And as most people know that are listening to this, that was an incredibly difficult time to be growing a farm. And we kind of made it through with grit. We didn't have the nicest equipment or those sorts of things, but we survived. And I think one thing that I'd give credit to sort of our family is my folks were always looking for new ways of doing things. That we were very early adopters of things like no-till and other things, and a lot of it really came down to what makes financial sense, what makes sense from a labor perspective. I mean, all the things that we struggle with, the farmers struggle with. We had to make it through those things, and so. I think the ability to look at the world as it is today and then sort of think, where could it be tomorrow, and how do you adapt? I think that's something that farmers are really pretty good at, and I think certainly the ones that will survive and thrive in the future are always looking for those changes.
Demonstration with the fingers. It's always ag and technology. Haven't they always been like this?
Yeah,
very much intertwined with each other.
Yeah, I really like that. There's kind of, for the folks in Nebraska, I think it's Minden, Nebraska. There is a great a museum up there, and they chronologically, they have all this farm equipment and all kinds of other cars and other things. But the really cool part of that for me, it's been years since I've been up there, but on all this farm equipment, they have it chronologically ordered, and you can tell that the top technology in 1901 was this, and the top technology, and then somebody added to it, and the top technology in 1905 is this. And you see this sort of creative destruction. And I mean, technology is really the foundation. Agriculture is really the first technology that allowed human civilization to advance. And so to talk about, I'm glad that you guys included an ag tech component to this summit, because I don't think we can, agriculture and technology are so intertwined in the past and certainly going into the future. that they're almost inseparable.
And in so many ways, with the COVID pandemic and the fact that nobody has been able to really go to meetings, go talk to each other in that aspect, but in many ways, technology has also brought people together too.
Yeah, yeah. I think about the farmers going to the coffee shop and things like that. A lot of that peer-to-peer communication, really took a hit during COVID. And a lot of folks tend to think that technology is a devising. It divides people and it puts technology kind of in between. I actually don't believe that's the case. I think if you do it correctly, technology is actually linking people in a better way. And so with COVID, for instance, we saw this with Hitchpin and certainly other things is producers weren't able to talk to each other. That sort of network that they were used to having just it was much more difficult. And so the ability to link producers that want to buy or sell something very efficiently to other people around them, I think has tremendous possibilities. And I think farms get bigger and we all all these are rural areas. The ability to connect people digitally in a meaningful way, I think has tremendous power.
We got a note. I wanted to bring this up, Trevor. There's the name of the
there you go,
museum in Minden, Nebraska.
Yep.
So from Alan von Heyman, who was one of our sponsors of Copper Cutter, talked about that. So he echoes what you said earlier on that too.
Great. I'll put the plug in for that. I mean, the history of agriculture is a long one, and seeing the technology lined up is pretty cool.
We're joined here on the Alpha Ag Summit talking about technology with Trevor Mckinnon, who is the founder and CEO of Hitchpin.com. They are the presenting sponsor of the Alpha Ag Summit. If you'd like more information, and we're going to talk about Hitchpin here in a while, go to Hitchpin.com. Trevor, we've seen so many other industries become, people have heard the term vertical integration.
Yeah. And
we've seen a lot of industries evolve into that as well. Is this coming for production agriculture?
Yeah, I mean, so agriculture, I would argue, has been very vertically integrated. It's at least from a producer standpoint. It's in the past. Well, actually, if you take a step back, I love the old photos of the threshing machines. That nobody, going way back, nobody could afford one themselves. So it was a community kind of resource, and it moved around. And, that was how they were able to afford that kind of technology back then. And then, agriculture kind of went into this mode where, I need to own the land and I need to own the equipment and sort of all the labor and I'm doing it all. And I think actually agriculture is gonna sort of go back to this idea of networking, a networked business, because there are certain limits. If you study sort of other industries that have had high vertical integration, at some point they start to break into networks because the network is more efficient. And I kind of use the example of there were mainframe computers, and one computer was expected to do all this work, and then that broke into the personal PC, and now we're down into mobile devices, and that network is actually a lot more efficient. And so if you're a producer and you're saying, hey, I really like to own the planter and the baler, and I really like to do that kind of work, but I want to hire out my harvesting. How do you go about finding those people? And so to create a network where the producer can actually invest in the things that they want to own, and then hire out other services or find those other things, I think is very interesting. And I do fundamentally believe that production agriculture will get more efficient by leveraging these networks.
We were talking beforehand. So many people know what Amazon is now, but how many people remember what Amazon started as? Yeah. Point being, the digital marketplace, the acceleration that we have seen in other industries. So kind of the same question I had before. Are we going to start to see that in production agriculture?
I believe so. I really do. And, Amazon started out by selling books, And at the time, they were this underdog, and nobody thought they had a chance of competing against Barnes and Noble and all these other bookstores. And now today we see that they not only sell things, but they're hosting servers, and I mean they've grown into so many different things, and so these marketplaces I think are very interesting. I think it has happened in other industries faster. It's coming to production agriculture. I think the reason it hasn't hit yet, or at least up until recently here, is, and farmers know this, but farming is so complicated. There are so many variables. I may be producing hay, I may be producing livestock. All these things are marketed differently, and so to build a marketplace that can really handle that variety in agriculture is very complicated. Like our team often jokes it'd be easier to do taxis and hotels compared to agriculture. So I think ag is coming, and I think there's some really positive aspects to that. The ability to give producers more control over how they buy and sell things. These are fundamentally good things for production agriculture.
And a reminder, this portion of the Alpha Ag Summit is being sponsored by Hitchpin. You can also go to alphaagsummit.com to get more information on our great sponsors like Hitchpin itself. But if you also go to the website, you can register for a 4-day trip to Sarasota, Florida to enjoy deep sea fishing with our friends at Double Nickel Siesta Key Charters, and brought to you by BNS Equipment. Trevor Mckinnon is joining us. He is the founder and CEO of Hitchpin. And you talked about how difficult it is in production agriculture. You also talked about your staff. Now, your staff may laugh at me for asking this question, though. Let's go into the realm of creating an app like this of Hitchpin.
Yeah.
Some would say, because how many apps are there in the world right now and constantly being developed? Some would say, well, then it's a cinch to be able to do. I will let you answer this. Is it easy? Is it hard as far as developing an app like this?
Yeah. Anytime you're building something new, there are challenges. There's a reason that it takes time to build these sorts of things, and I would say technologically, the stuff that we've been working with, it's on par technologically with anywhere in the world. So we're based in Manhattan, Kansas, and we're using technology that you would see anywhere else in the world, which is really cool. I love that part about what we're doing. Actually, the agriculture side of this house, I think, is as complex or more complex than the technology. So to be able to understand how you link, how you can actually benefit a producer and sort of real value creation for them, and then implement it into a technological solution is incredibly complicated. I'm very fortunate. We have a phenomenal team at Hitchpin. These are folks that really understand agriculture. They understand technology. And, we're to a point now where the stuff that we're tackling and the challenges, the technological challenges that we have, it really takes a phenomenal team to pull that off. And I'm very fortunate to work around folks that truly care. Our neighbors are farmers. So it's important we get this right. Of course, there's a good chunk of the team that is actively still involved in farming at some level. So, this isn't just some sort of fly-in from another, technological space. This is born out of the need that ag has some real challenges ahead. And if we can do our part to connect people better and help them market their products and services, then we're fundamentally doing something that's both valuable to them and just good in general in the ag space. And that's the real driver, I think, behind our team. And it is challenging, but I think it's well worth it.
Well, let's take a look at your app here, and we'll bring it up on screen to show everybody. And by the way, and they can find that in the Apple Store.
Sure. Yep. Yeah, we have this This is our native iOS app, which just go to the App Store on your iPhone and look for Hitchpin Agriculture. Most of our users actually they reach us just via the website, so hitchpin.com, and that works really well on Android devices and iPhone devices as well. So just sort of hitchpin.com. But this is the native app, and you asked about how hard it is to build these things, yeah, Greg. So it's been fun to see the number of pins grow. I mean, from that nucleus that started in Kansas, and it has expanded, really pretty rapidly across the country. I think we have listings in 48 states now. And so, that's a testament, I think, again, to the team. And then just also, I think producers are looking for new tools. I mean, COVID has really accelerated the idea that the world is not going to go back to the way it was. And, what tools are out there. So, yeah, we're delighted to see this map be full of producer services and products.
Well, like any other app, though, you constantly develop it. In the case of Hitchpin and hitchpin.com, you develop it by offering more that the farmers can use, give them more tools.
Yeah. So, if we talked earlier about Amazon and they started with books, we started with something very non-sexy, hay production. But it was something that, frankly, our farm needed. I grew up farming north of Abilene, and you think about hay, some years you have great production and some years you don't. Some years it's really fast to sell things, and other years you end up holding on to hay. And then, getting paid was always, could always pose a problem at times. So, how do you accelerate the payments when that hay leaves the field? How does the producer get paid really quickly? And so that's really where Hitchpin started. And then then we realized there's a lot of other things out there that really need to be addressed. So we went into services next. So things like custom harvesting. And again, that, kind of reference back to our farm. I grew up with a bunch of old Massey Ferguson, combines. And I like to tease that at one point we had 5 of them because, you were just praying that one was running by the end. You'd part it out, numbers 1 through 4, and number 5 was just barely chugging for that last acre. So, and fast forward to today, we currently don't own any combines. And the reason for it is, we'd rather, at least in our operation, it makes more sense to hire that particular aspect done. So, and then focus on other things like the hay business in our side. So, how do we connect those service providers was next? And then we very rapidly added other categories. So livestock, you can see, came online, and it's been growing really quickly. We've added equipment. The latest thing that we added is actually grain. So you can buy and sell grain on the app, and in a very exciting way, you can have feedlots and mills and ethanol plants and all these consumers of grain post out there that says, hey, I would like 500,000 bushels of corn in this location. And it allows producers to respond to that and offer up grain. And it connects them again in a really new way. So, the challenge, I think, in agriculture is where do you, how do you box it in? There are so many categories in agriculture that you really have to have technology that can handle that kind of variety. It's really one of the most complicated parts of an ag marketplace like this.
The interesting question in all this is, how can technology help the generation that wants to remain in farming, not necessarily real tech friendly, and help the new generation that would like to come in and loves using this or loves using, the app or on hitchpin.com and know what to do and be able to do that.
Yeah. And it's interesting. We've found that there's the correlation between our user base and age. It's actually the farmers that are on, and we've been growing really rapidly, about 30% a month or so. And if you look at the users, the farmers coming to the app, they fit squarely into the demographic of the average age of the farmer. So it is the folks that are actively out there in production agriculture, and I think the average age is 58 in farming, somewhere around that. And so our app, we're seeing a lot of producers, sort of all ages using the app. And for guys like, again, my dad, he's 73, and he's using the app because he has made the decision that it doesn't make sense to buy this particular piece of equipment or those sorts of things. So it's actually given him a lot more flexibility. And then the thing that you mentioned earlier that I really like is there's a whole generation of farmers, of young producers that are kind of getting pushed out of agriculture right now. And it's so expensive to start an operation with equipment and land and these sorts of things that I'm excited, with a service like this, they could own some equipment, keep it running, pick up more jobs, and then hopefully over time that gives them a toehold to grow their operation. And there's not many channels to allow producers to really start an operation. And I hope, as a company, that's something that we can really offer, that we can provide that, that generation that wants to be part of the farm to come back and do it.
Lest we forget, if you really think about agriculture, how logistically complex it is, just because of so many things that farmers need to know. And you go markets, genetics, equipment, labor, technology, payments, macroeconomics, so much they have to do. So incorporating technology, how can that help them to be able to, I don't want to say make it easier, but at least give them the tools that they need?
Oh yeah, and that's one place that I would say farming is fairly unique, even compared to other businesses. Is you have to have such a broad understanding. I mean, producers are balancing so many different things. Again, you mentioned all these things of marketing and you've got to understand how how the crop is going to grow and what genetics you really need to be thinking about. And I mean, it's amazing. And so, I guess where I think technology has the most potential is if you're a producer and you're busy. I mean, all these guys are working hard. It's how do I simplify the things? How can I use technology not to complicate my life, but to simplify it? And so, in our case, for instance, I kind of look at us as the plumbing and the walls behind. It's the stuff that people really don't have a lot of time or, frankly, interest to do. So, how do I market my product or service easier? How do I get it out there? How do I create a name and a reputation for myself as a producer? So, we're kind of hosting that capability to market. And then, all the payment processing things. I mean, at least I can speak from our farm's experience. Producers typically don't love to do paperwork. And so the ability to have all your invoicing and all that stuff done for you is really great. I mean, I visited with some custom harvesters, and they're getting paid when they're out cutting wheat or cutting corn. They're not getting paid to sit and write invoices. And so the idea that they could leave the field and essentially go on to the next job and verify that the job is complete and the payment hits their bank account, and they never, they could snap photos of weigh tickets and really never even write that paper ticket. That's pretty great. It's like having an entirely new person on the team to help manage a lot of that detail work.
We're here on the technology panel on the Alpha Ag Summit, and we're joined by Trevor Mckinnon, who is the founder and CEO of Hitchpin, who is the presenting sponsor of the Alpha Ag Summit. You can go to their website at hitchpin.com. But if you go to alphaagsummit.com, just click on the sponsors page and you'll see all of our great sponsors who are a part of bringing you this Alpha Ag Summit. We've talked about technology, just in one aspect of the digital side of this. What other technology trends right now are out there in ag that we're starting to see maybe become more prevalent?
Certainly, yeah. There are a lot of them out there, and I don't claim to be an expert in all of them. We're seeing advancements of course, we spend a lot of time on markets and how you're connecting people digitally, but you're also seeing advancements on the hardware side. So, what's the role of robotics going to play in farming? And we're not actually that far off on some of this stuff. So, people are using GPS and auto steer to navigate the field already. And I think all of this is not, it's not just technology for the sake of technology. It's really, I think that the items that are going to make the biggest impact follow right in line with the real pain points in agriculture right now, which is, we hear all the time about labor. How do we find folks to help us, operate the farm, and then the cost of equipment. So how do we justify the cost of equipment? So I think technologies that start to address each of these pieces are the ones that are going to have the highest adoption rate. I mean, as we were talking earlier, I don't think farmers are slow to adopt technology at all. I think they are incredibly fast. I just think they're a lot more frugal than other industries. They want to know that the technology is going to actually provide value to them. And as soon as that happens, I think they address it and they access that technology pretty fast. So I know of startups on the robotics space and in the space of linking service technicians to producers in a more efficient digital way. There's just so many fascinating things out there. And I think the technology that we'll see in the next 5 years, we'll look back and say, well, of course that was obvious. Of course a digital marketplace makes sense. It may seem a little foreign today, but in the future, it will be common.
Yeah, it's amazing to think, because of the fact that who among us, if we had this conversation 10, 15 years ago, and you're looking in the early 2000s,
yeah,
you would have sat there and said, oh, by this time we're going to have tractors that have auto steer in them. Yep. If you raise your hand, I don't think you're telling the truth, because
yeah.
That's just me, though. I mean,
no, I think you're right. I think you're right, and a lot of it has to do with these enabling technologies. So, how does a platform like a mobile phone change the game in farming? I mean, it's fascinating. You'll see these trends, these sort of big technological trends, and then people start stacking things. We all sort of stand on the shoulder of giants here, and I think that's the revolutionary part of this, is the amount of stuff that we can now do on a mobile phone that's directly beneficial is just amazing now. I think you and I had talked earlier that, I remember wearing pliers on my belt, growing up, and you still see that. And now you see the smartphone strapped to a lot of people's belt. And in many cases, I think the farmers, we actually needed the jump to the mobile phone to be able to do a lot of this technological work, because they weren't at home staring at their computers all day, right? You need the access when you're in the field. And so we're at the edge of some really innovative things, and frankly, things that I think are going to be very helpful to producers.
We're here on Talking Technology on the Alpha Ag Summit. Trevor Mckinnon is joining us, the founder and CEO of Hitchpin. You can go to their website at hitchpin.com to get more information as well. We talk about tech. Well, you got to have companies to make these products. And we're slowly starting to see more and more these tech companies realize that and get into agricultural areas to have plants to be able to produce that product too.
Yeah, I think you're right, and I think there's a lot of people that are looking at the big view of certainly investors are doing this. They're saying the world population is going to get to 9 billion people, and we're going to have to feed a lot more people. I mean, this is farmers have been tremendous at being able to meet the demands as we've gone, and we've kind of taken that for granted, that that there's always going to be that sort of increase in productivity. So there are a ton of people that are looking at food production and agriculture saying, hey, I think this is a really interesting space. Many of them don't have a fairly good understanding of what's involved in the ag space. So, I think that's the biggest challenge here is bringing things down into tangible items that actually provide value. And there's a lot of there's a lot of carcasses of technology companies that haven't figured that out. So I mean, that's something we're keenly interested in. I mean, this isn't just technology for the sake of technology. It's what's actually useful. What is something that's going to help that producer with their operation, and then let's build for that. And really, the only way you can do that is if you're in the game and you're there, sort of boots on the ground, and you're talking to producers. It's one of the reasons we located the company in the center part of the country. Is we wanted to be very close to producers and really understand that and be part of the sort of the fabric of what this next generation of farming is going to look like. And I think the same challenges that we see in the United States, we're going to see globally. I was in India a number of years ago with a great program, the CARL program, Kansas Ag and Rural Leadership. And the average acre size in India was an acre, or average farm in India was 1.5 acres. And so if you think about, we were there watching somebody hand sow wheat, and then there was a modern combine that zipped down the road behind him. And so, globally, we're going to see really a lot of transition in agriculture. We're going to have to get more efficient in order to sort of feed that population.
One thing I'm curious about, or to get your thoughts on, through all this, through having that technology, yet one of the issues that we keep hearing about is the issue of rural broadband.
Yeah.
And, you go out into any areas of Texas, to Kansas, Missouri, Nebraska, Iowa, South Dakota, Minnesota, I don't care where, you hear about those issues. You hear about, our internet connection, our Wi-Fi is just not there.
Yeah.
Is that a limiting factor on where this technology goes? Because of the fact, you've got rural broadband here, but you've got technology rising a lot higher in efficiency than what we see in rural broadband?
It is absolutely a factor from the standpoint of you have to have that baseline infrastructure in order to get things done. And I would make the argument that we talk about rural broadband and things like that. There are many rural places that have fiber to the home, so they've got there are some places that have blazing fast internet at their house. Some other places don't. I would make the argument that certainly broadband, wireless broadband, probably at least for farmers, has probably the largest impact, because how do I run these apps when I'm in my truck at the edge of the field? Like I may have blazing fast internet at home, but how do I get that kind of speed where I'm at? And I do think that's another piece of technology, this sort of beyond Hitchpin or any other things like that. Technology really has the chance to level the playing field in many cases. There are a lot of folks that kind of take advantage of the information asymmetries that are out there. And if you can give people the same level of information and the same access and allow them to compete head to head, you just opened up a whole new category for folks. And I'm excited about that. I think COVID has accelerated this idea that interesting technologies and interesting things can happen, not just in a couple places in the world, but actually anywhere. I think anywhere, meaning you still have to have that internet connection like you're talking about. But I think the game has changed. The rules are different. We see it in our hiring. We're constantly looking for good folks, and we have the ability now to pull from a really amazing pool of people that can work remotely. So I actually think in some cases, COVID has been devastating across the world, but there were some trends that were happening slowly, and they have been accelerated. And I actually think the ability to have technology across the board and people access it from where they want to access it is possibly one of the most positive things that could happen to rural places.
And Trevor, as we wrap this up, we've talked so much about where technology is going, how exciting it is as well. Where do you see your own Hitchpin go? Where do you see that going? And knowing that, hey, it's not endless that of what you're able to offer, but I'm sure you've got things in the pipeline that are saying, that might be a good idea.
Yeah, I mean, there's no shortages of requests. We get requests sort of every day. Can you add a new category or new a new service to your app? And we really tried to build it in a way that could handle that. Our primary goal here is, again, I go back to the farmer. How do we provide something really valuable to them? If we do that, if we're able to have them buy and sell cattle, equipment, their grain, if they can hire those services done, and we've just created something that allowed their farm to have more profitability, then our business is going to be fine. Like our primary focus is the farmer. If we take care of them, we will be fine as a company. I do think that whether Hitchpin does this or some other company, the world is going to have a digital marketplace for ag production products and services. We're, I think, ahead of the game. We've been really thinking about and working on this for a long time. But I think that items like this are going to transform agriculture as we know it. During COVID, actually, in China, you started seeing tech companies that were connecting farmers to consumers. And in a couple months, they had $2 billion in sales. So, I like the idea that, hopefully we can be part of that transition. And the stamp that I want to have from a Hitchpin perspective is to keep that really grounded at the producer level. So, if new platforms are going to rearrange the rules of how things are traded, I really want that to come from the focus of the farmer. So that's the reason we're moving as quickly as we can. We want to help be part of setting that new infrastructure. I do think certainly we have the chance to be a very large marketplace in the United States and possibly beyond.
Because I'm sure you get the feedback that the farmer says, hey, I was able to do this and I was able to get things done and I was able to get my grain sold. That probably makes you feel like, you know what, me and my staff, we did the job right.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. That's the part that's the most fun. In fact, of all the things that keep our team going, it's actually the conversations with the farmers. And honestly, that's another reason we were delighted to be part of this Ag Summit. I think anytime you're connecting farmers and getting information to them, like that's the most fun. I would, if I could, be on the phone with producers all day, that's the best part of this. And, again, I'm sort of a tip of the hat to the Alpha Ag Network on this. I mean, Ag Radio has been doing so many amazing things connecting farmers for many years. And so, I think that's a really important part of this. How do we get information out there on the new trends that are happening? And so, I applaud you guys for pulling together this summit, and I really appreciate our opportunity to be part of it.
We got a couple minutes left, and we do have a question I'm going to bring up here concerning rural broadband. And will Elon Musk's Starlink system be a viable source of broadband for rural areas?
Yeah, I love this question for actually a couple different reasons. On a personal level, I put my order in for a Starlink satellite the other day. And I think the part that is the most interesting to me on that is actually the launch of Starlink itself. Everybody thought it was crazy to start a rocket company. Elon starting this rocket company, and they have blown up certainly probably more rockets in the last 6 months than some of the large aerospace companies have built in years. And it's that kind of fascination of technology, like the willingness to go out and build things and test them and potentially fail. But that's the real driver to make big advancements. And so, I think it's interesting that Starlink is actually just the culmination of the positives of being able to get broadband. But I really love the backstory, which is people have been working really hard to sort of progress that entire industry. So yeah, that's fun stuff to watch.
All right. Well, Trevor, I appreciate you being on. It's great to talk about this. This was a great conversation to get some of your perspective on that. So I appreciate it. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Greg. Again, delighted to be part of this.
That will do it for our trade talking about technology portion of the Alpha Ag Summit. And we'd like to thank Trevor Mckinnon, once again, founder and CEO of hitchpin.com. They're based in Manhattan, Kansas. Thanks for joining us today. The Alpha Ag Network, along with our sponsors, are proud to bring you this Ag Summit, and a special thanks to our presenting sponsor, Hitchpin. The views and opinions expressed on today's panel are not those of Alpha Media and do not represent the viewpoints of Alpha Ag Network stations, their farm directors, or management. This broadcast is presented and protected by copyright laws, and credit should be given whenever sharing or reposting of this video. Alpha Ag Network is local farm programming, promoting, respecting, and celebrating the industry that drives our communities, agriculture. Coming up on the Alpha Ag Summit, we will focus on weather. And of course, many people keeping a very close eye on that as well. Our producer has been Shayla Reilinger, along with my colleague Dwayne Murley. I'm Greg Akagi. Thank you for joining us and watching this portion of the Alpha Ag Summit.